Welcome to Noble Warrior. My name is CK Lin. Noble Warriors want to interview thought leaders about their journey from being a burnout overachiever to reclaiming the joy and purpose so we can learn from them and do the same. My next guest is a co-founder of Advoque. He is also a fearless leader of a Burning Man think camp, I'm OK, You're OK Corral, that's been around for the last 19 years. Please welcome Steve Hermosillo.
Hermosillo, yeah.
Hermosillo.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Steve.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here. Absolutely. My pleasure.
So 19 years, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't really think about it in those terms, but then when people ask, I'm like, oh yeah. Well, I mean, our first camp was '01, and the first time I went to Burning Man was 2000. And it's amazing that we even came back because that year in particular, it rained for 4 days straight. So I know that you've been to the event. Was this your first year this year?
No, this is my third.
Oh, your third. Okay, cool, nice. And when rain gets introduced out there, it completely shuts the entire city down.
Yeah,
So
the dust turns into mud, right?
It turns into mud, and you can't roll a bicycle on it. You can't walk on it. You can't drive on it. It's just you're just screwed. And so it shut the whole city down for 4 days straight, and then it finally let up on the Saturday, the night of the burn.
Wow.
And that was an eye-opening experience, and then it inspired myself and a few others to want to bring something back. You know, my wife and I were in an RV pulling out in the year 2000, and we were looking out the back window, and I said to her, you know, I don't think I could ever come back here and not want to be a part of this community. You know, all we did that year was take. We were takers. We were, not participants. And going into it, I had no expectations, and so oftentimes when you have no expectations and then people are just gifting you things and showing you things, and there's a different spirit that comes out in people out there. It was very inspiring. It changed like how I would want to interact with humans.
How would you articulate that different spirit that you just talked about?
Yeah, like I'll tell you, I had a weird experience. So and it's an experience that's repeated year after year. Is my very first year, the greeters, they come in and they invade your space, and they're, the people my first year were like clowns, and they were all dressed up with makeup, and they were like, welcome home. And they gave me this big hug, and I was like, okay, this is already challenging my personal space, or, just the way that they're communicating. I felt it was a little bit hippie-ish, and like, they're welcome home, brother. And, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And they have you ring the bell and you do the dust bunnies and all that stuff. And then it was, we experienced the event, had to help some people because there was 80-mile-an-hour winds, and their tent got blown away. And so we had to like take them into our, rig and feed them and let them sleep in our RV. We already had 5 people in the RV, and now we had, I think, 3 more. So there was 8 of us.
Wow.
And anyway, it was an experience. But the next year that I came back, I was so looking forward to that welcome home. I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Welcome home. Yeah, right. And it just changed my perception of it, and how you would integrate into a community that is truly, money's forbidden, and it's a gifting society, and you got your 10 principles and all that stuff. And, you really start to like go, wow, this is a different way of communicating. Yeah.
So for someone who's never been, I'll actually use the younger CK as an example.
Okay.
So I never been to Burning Man 3 years ago, or actually 2017 was my first year. And then before 2017, I would think like, oh, okay, Burning Man is a massive party in the desert. And that's it. That's the extent of it. That was my
Yeah.
understanding of it because I've never been and I don't understand. I didn't compute in my mind. Why would
Yeah.
you want to do a massive party in the middle of a desert in the heat with no shower, no power?
Right.
Right. And obviously, I am now a convert. I'm right now evangelizing for Burning Man.
Sure. Sure.
It's a different experience. So if you don't mind going into paint a picture for people who's never been, who just imagine it to be a party, a festival, right? Quote
Yeah.
unquote festival, Coachella-esque, right?
Sure.
What would you say to them? Well, that's not really it. How do you describe a Burning
I
Man? What's
think
Burning Man to you?
I think that it can be interpreted in so many different ways. So let's take this event that's in the middle of the desert. There's no resources. You're, exposed to the elements. You've got severe cold, severe heat, wind, dust. The best way I can put that is it's a giant asshole filter. And so think about that.
Okay.
So think about if the event were held in Golden Gate Park. Well, that would be a disaster because it would then the cities would be involved. And of course, there's issues with BLM and police and all that stuff at Burning Man too. But you'd have this really regulated event. It would be very accessible. People would stay in hotels, so then there breaks the communal part of it. There's just so many barriers to entry of what the further you bring it out and push it into this remote area that is really not hospitable in any way, shape, or form, that sets up a platform for people that really want to be there, that truly get it, and they want to go out there and they want to participate and they want to see art and they want to dance in a theme camp. They want to go have a beer in a camp like ours, or they want to ride an art car, or they want to go meditate. A lot of our campmates are super into yoga, so they hit the yoga camps in the mornings and do all that. There's something for everyone out there, and there's even a Kidsville where kids run around in this centralized section. I've only been there once because I had some friends that had kids out there, and that was strange to me. I don't like necessarily kids in the environment just because I think it challenges a young mind, although I've had good experiences with young minds out there too. So I don't know, I'm still divided on that. But getting back to your core question, you were asking me to describe it. I think that the event is, it will challenge, if you're truly open to the experience, it will challenge how you interact. One of the key components of a camp, our camp, is I always try to pack it with about 10% of people that have never been. And we have our tried and
version
trues.
quota.
Yeah, we have. I do keep an eye on that because that perception heightens the perception of tried and true members. I have people that have been in the camp from the very beginning, people that have been with us for 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, but there's always that small contingency of folks. And it doesn't necessarily happen by design, but I do have my radar up, and I do kind of shoulder tap some of my core members and go like, hey, what about that person? Because I met that person at a barbecue 6 months ago. Those people would be fun out there. Any interest, you learn to kind of spot key indicators about the way that people already talk or already think about things, and you're like, those people should see this. And sometimes I go literally out of my way. I'll have a friend or an associate or something, and I'll literally go out of my way to be like, hey man, I have this camp at Burning Man and I think you'd be great there. And it's a curation over time. And I've had many of those same conversations with some of my best friends and took them out there. And yeah, you know, it does change their perception, and it does add to, you know, already a deepened connection with that person. Some of them aren't as deep as others, but you do get this sense of community, and that you're going out there to build something. That's another big topic that I'm sure we'll get to in this talk. But
Yeah, and actually, so before we talk about sponsorship, effectively, what you're talking about, how do you sponsor new people? I want to double click on a theme that you had just talked about. You want to maintain 10% of people who see Burning Man for the first time.
yeah,
And I'm recalling a conversation I had with a podcast guest, Jun Yoon. He said to his people, show me the world through your eyes. So for someone who's been in Burning Man for 19 years, it's a
yeah,
different experience when you can see Burning Man through someone's fresh eyes for the first time,
yeah,
right? The
yeah,
awe
totally.
that they see, the blown, how much they're moved and touched by,
Yeah,
what may be normal for a 19-year veteran,
right.
and you get to experience that life or Burning Man
Yeah,
newly through that person.
totally, totally. I had a wonderful experience this year with a young lady that very corporate job and very successful, and sought this out for herself. She was a friend of one of my best friends, and said, you know, I want to go out there and see this thing. And so I said, well, you know, she happens to live close to us, my wife and I. So my wife and I and my bestie Tiffany, we said, let's go to breakfast. Let's meet this girl. So we went to breakfast and we broke bread, and I loved her right away. I was like, oh, this girl's great. She's awesome. And and then I, you know, explained, hey, you do understand it's a working camp. You know, there's a lot of upfront work, and then there's work on the back end. Everything in between is just fun. And she's like, oh no, I'm down. I got it. You know, I want to go out there. I don't want to just go out there to go out there. I want to be a part of something. I want to build something. I was like, wow, you got it. That's cool. So we go out there, and, you know, we get out there the day before the event opens, and we set our camp. We had a record time set. We set the entire camp in one day, which has never happened. It's usually a 2-day ordeal, but we had a solid crew this year. And so she busted her ass, and we're you know, full steam ahead. And then we run a little saloon. The OK Corral has a saloon in it, and so we got the saloon set, and, you know, the ice fender, and just getting it all gussied up and decorated. And then we start running the event. Well, she's right there in tow the whole time. And then now we're into Monday, and she's like, man, I am having the best time. And I, you know, and I kind of casually mentioned, like, have you gone out to see the art? You know, have you gone out to the play? And she's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And it just dawned on me. I'm like, no one has taken this girl out to see what's going on out there. And she had no idea that there was even an open playa with art on it. And I was like, okay, get on your bike. Like, we got to go out here and see this. And it was just fun to see it through her eyes that way. You know, it you know, she's like, I had no idea. I didn't know that this was going to be this vast, or that it was going to be that prolific. And she truly had a transformational experience this year. It was fun to see it. I get a little emotional about it, because you see it through their eyes, and then they come back, and she's sending me messages like, that really changed me. It was really profound. And I'm like, yeah, good for you. That's why I like to have virgins in the camp, because it renews even the reasons that you're there. You know, that you're like, yeah, this really is exceptional. This really is unusual. And I've said this to other people. Name another moment in time, and it doesn't matter when, where the only purpose was to celebrate life and art, and commerce is forbidden, aside from, you know, all the obvious expenses that it takes to get your ass out there. But name another moment in time where something like this has happened. I don't know what that is. It could have been. It could have been 5,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. There was an event purely set up to just revel, and people spend 6, 7, 8 months building things to go out there and wow others. I don't know anything that's quite like it. It's a very, you know, everybody wants to put that brushstroke that it's so corporate and Burning Man's dead and all this other garbage, and it's like, I don't know what you're seeing, but I go out there and I see wonderful pieces that people really put their heart and soul into, and it's kind of rude to just paint this brushstroke when, you know, people truly are bringing. I mean, this year was just, you were out there. It was absolutely stunning. It was a stunning event. People really brought it. Obviously, everybody had a 3-year break from the pandemic, so people, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen more installations out there. And so Burning Man is not dead. It's very much alive. And it was just cool to see and experience.
I love the way you articulated what is it in very succinct words. It's a container, it's a place where life and art are celebrated,
Yeah.
and then allowed people to transform themselves accordingly. It's a self-selective process to get people out there. The time, the gear, the preparation, the art card, whatever the thing, and the
Whatever the
build
thing. Yeah.
itself, right? All that.
Yeah.
So describe to me the transformation that you have witnessed in probably hundreds of people by now, right? 19 years running
Yeah.
camp. What have you witnessed that really still you remember still today? Some of the transformation that you saw, the before and also the after.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, the first event I went to, I believe the population was 9,000. And then it was 11, and then it was 14, and it, you know, clearly it's much larger now. I think it's approaching right around 80,000. And so that's one major transformation. Is I've seen them. You know, Burning Man is an experiment, and every year they take what they've learned from years past and they try to improve. And I've seen them kind of miss the mark, and in simple ways. One of the ways that they did was that I thought they missed the mark is the event was scaling up. They were going from something like 12,000 people to like 18,000 people, which was a significant jump. And so they took the city, the same format, but they stretched it out, and it was too big for the amount of people that were there. So like just getting from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock across the playa was it was like, okay, this is gonna be a 2-mile bike ride, right? And so so that, I think they learned from that, because it was just too spread out. And the following year they tightened it up, and the bicycle accidents went through the roof because it was too tight. So there's some sort of weird algorithm that they've figured out where they're like, okay, X amount of people, and this is our, you know, this is our footprint, and this is what works. Like this year, I thought was a perfect balance of art and, you know, people getting around on their bicycles and art cars and all of that stuff. I thought it was a perfect balance. I've been there where it's not. Another big thing that I've seen is just on a more emotional level is like Burning Man is has this you know, it's an effigy, so it has this nondescript meaning. So it can mean everything and it can mean nothing.
You mean the man itself? Is that what you mean?
The man itself, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, well, you know, I had a year years ago. My mom passed in 2011. That was a very emotional year for me. And so I went out there and had a very different experience. It was very spiritual, and I was missing her and all those things that go along with it. Put a nice shrine to her. And that was my year. And it was cool to experience, but at the same time, that was the reality of it, you know. And then I've had years where everything is gelling and my relationships are great and my kids are doing wonderful. And you go out there and just, revel in it and truly like push into it and experience it. But that's what I mean is like it has this meaning that changes year by year, and you never know what what you're going to get until the months leading up to that event. And you have to make space for people that are, you go out to the temple, and you've been out to the temple, and a lot
I'm
of people.
actually interviewing the architect of the temple this year.
Wonderful! It was such a beautiful effort this year. He knocked it out of the park. And you go out there, and obviously it's a very somber experience, and sometimes I go out there and I'm just observing and other people in their pain, but I know what it's like to be there, so I have to be there to empathize, but I'm not necessarily in tears. Whereas other times, and clearly I'm a crybaby, so other times I'm so exposed, and I get out there and I just get pulled into it. And it might just be from something that I'm personally going through, or a loss or something like that, and it just has a completely different meaning. And it can be very heavy, but also cathartic. Yeah.
So you are at a unique position where you're not only a participant, but you're also a curator, organizer of a camp,
Sure.
that designed a container for 80 plus people for the last 19 years. So I'm curious to know, what is Burning Man for you?
Ooh, man. I would look at it as our experience as the same as how Burning Man looks at it, on a much smaller scale. We're 60 people trying to put on a theme camp. And that has evolved over time. So we've always had a home base for years, probably 10 years. The camp revolved around an art car, various art cars, and that was our donation to the community. Was we came up with one art car that we could I think we could put about 30, 40 people on it. As big as we had one art car that we could put about 100 people on. And, it was set up like an old choo-choo train, vintage choo-choo train, and it spit fire out of the plumes, and had a full DJ system and fold out, dance platforms and all that. Lots of fun, lots of responsibility. And you're dealing with there's just a lot of systems that are going on around it, and you have to choose your crew, and everybody has to be sober and on their game, and walkie-talkies and the whole bit. So it's kind of a stressful experience, but that was what we wanted to do at that time. And then I just kind of flipped on a dime, and I just didn't want to do the art car thing anymore. And myself and a couple of other campmates decided we were going to do a saloon. My buddy Dutch drew up some plans, and we kind of ebbed and flowed and changed some things. And then we pushed into that space, and I wasn't sure how that was going to feel. It was like, yeah, this could be fun. And then we took it out there, and man, it was a blast. It was really fun. And what was even funner was to see our camp rally behind that effort. And truly, the girls dressed like can girls, and the guys put on their old timey bartender outfits, and it looked very saloony. And it was really cool to be in the middle of that and seeing all this creativity swirl around it. And you're like, all of this emanated from just a conversation of us just kicking this ball around. And we wanted to do something that complemented the name of the group already, which was I'm OK, You're OK Corral. And so it's just a natural segue into a saloon. And that's what I get a kick out of these days is we put things in motion, we curate, we pull all this effort together, and you point, and then people go, what if we did it like this? Yeah, do that. That's awesome. And what if we changed this and we went left instead of right? I love it. Go. And people start to make it their own. And all I'm doing is just pointing this and kind of pushing it towards an end goal. But then I love it when people want to take it and make it their own and make it better. And that is for me, being at the middle of that and seeing all that creativity swirl around you is fantastic. That is one of the key reasons why I go back every year is just to experience that. And
So if I'm
see it.
hearing you right, it's a playground to co-create with your campmates.
Yes.
What new
Love it.
ideas, experiments that you may want to do.
Yeah, that's a good
So
way of
let's
putting it.
actually talk about that for a bit,
Mhm.
because the operations of Burning Man or running camps, in my mind, is, let's see, the opportunity, but also the challenge,
Mhm.
because it's voluntary based, right? There's no,
Yeah.
you know,
No compensation.
sort of
Yeah.
compensation type of thing.
Yeah.
Like you don't pay for things. It's all voluntary basis.
Yes.
So how do you run that operation? For 19 years. I mean, that in itself, again, an accomplishment for 19 years, right?
Yeah. So for
How did you?
years, yeah, for probably the first 10 years, I arranged everything myself. And that was, it's something that I did out of joy. And so, you put as much as you can into it. That makes sense. And some years the efforts are greater than others. But the end goal is that you're trying to create something that wows people when you take it out there, and it's all for the
Who's
sake
people?
of
Who's people, by the way?
people that are at Burning Man. It's an experiment in art. It's an experiment in an experience, and also for the camp. I do it really for the camp as well. I love the co-creativity and all the things that I described earlier. But about 10 years into it, I met this woman named Deb, and Deb was highly organized. And I just saw that about her, and I said, hey, I shoulder tapped her, said, hey, I want you to come with me out to this event. My wife and I were dear friends with her, and we said, hey, we want to show you this. And so she came out, and she was brave enough to get her butt out there, and she had a blast. She loved it. And I'm like, great, you're the mayor. So I created my counterpart, and so I am a little bit more emotionally driven at times, and so if there's an obstacle in my way, I will tend to meet it head on and be very assertive. And sometimes the perception is I'm a little curt and rude and to the point. She is the polar opposite. So she is a Southern girl. She kind of has a Southern drawl, and she just has this sweet way about her, and that's the way she comes across. And I thought, man, you would be the perfect counterbalance to me and my asshole persona. That you would help to kind of smooth out any obstacles that were in our way. Man, did that work! She really brought a great arm to the effort, and she started immediately buddying up to some of the vendors that we rely on, like the water vendors or the fuel vendors, or even Burning Man itself, and just getting us great real estate. She just personalized all of those relationships, and not only just reached out to them and developed a relationship with them, but then became their friends year round. And they would send, here's a picture of my dog in Christmas, or things like that. You're like, wow, you actually created a community out of this, which is something that I probably would not have done. Is because I'm busy running companies with my partners, and but she just had the patience and the time for that, and it's helped immensely on our standing within the community, because I believe we're viewed as a really solid camp, because we keep getting invited back every year, and we keep getting great real estate placement. So we
By the way,
very
so
much appreciate it.
speaking
Yeah.
of, what's great real estate placement? Because people
Well,
mention it, and then I don't really understand what are
yeah.
the sort of
So
the priorities or the hierarchy of
yeah,
real
it
estate in
all
Burning Man.
depends on um, what you're doing. So, like, if you're a sound camp, obviously the corner of 2 o'clock or the corner of 10 o'clock are pretty damn good, right? I mean, those are the pinnacle spots. Those are the hot zones, and then everything down, that graduates back down A, BC, those are all, that's considered great placement if you're a sound camp. If you're an interactive camp and you truly want, just a collection of people just stopping in constantly, then you want to be on the Esplanade, right? So you might, you that would be considered that's prime time real estate, right? What I've learned is I like to be slightly removed from the Esplanade. So we got shoulder tapped about 6 years ago, to be a part of this experiment that they were doing in the portals. So they call them the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock portals. And as you go down 3 or 9, you have these stopping points. They're turnabouts, and they usually put a piece of art in the middle, and then they place these camps all around the portal. So there's really about four to six camps that get placed around the portal, and then there's another portal up the way, and I believe there's a third. I think we like being in that first or second portal, and like I said, we were a part of their experiment that they were doing, and then the portals just took off. They actually have their own little community. I belong to a Facebook group that's just focused on our portal, and it's run by one of the placers, and he goes out of his way to make sure that the camps are talking to one another on social, and is anybody bringing does anybody have an extra cooler, or does people start making requests? Tools are a big thing, right? Does anybody have a rotary hammer or a sawzall that they can bring? We'd love to borrow it from you. Where are you guys at? So people start to interconnect that way,
like a neighborhood
type of, your neighborhood, and you're sharing resources, or this year we were next to the post office. We were right next door to them, and we were sharing a fire lane, and they were just really nice people. So we were going over there and say, hey, come join us for dinner. Dinner is a big part of our group every night. And so especially when you look at the dinner crews and you can see they've got more food than we can consume, we start going and shoulder tapping the neighborhood. Like, hey, come over. We're doing, couscous and kebabs, or we're doing it's hamburger and hot dog night, or it's Italian night, whatever it is. We start to, integrate with our neighbors and bring them in to, break some bread with us.
I love it. Like community within a community.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. How important is that, cultivating relationship with your neighbors? And
yeah, I think that's one of the key components to the event. It comes in a variety of forms. It might just be that you're just want to meet your neighbors and break bread with them, and it also might be like this year we were having major problems with our generator. And we didn't realize that the generator required DEF fuel. It's a DEF fuel additive. And so I started looking around for large generators in our community, and right across the street was a generator that was almost the same make model as ours. So I went over there and just had a casual conversation, just saying, hey, we didn't realize this required this. Mainly because the generator that we'd rented for the last 10 years didn't have it. So this was obviously a huge upgrade. And sure enough, they had a box of the fluid that we needed, and it kept us going for 3 days. We ran out again and shoulder tapped somebody else and kept us going for another couple of days. So, it goes both ways. Of course. We'd like to reach out to our neighbors and say, hey, come over, come have a drink with us, be very neighborly. But then on the other hand, you're like, hey, I need something here. We screwed up. And so, it goes, I think it's very important to have a community within your community. Yeah, for sure.
I love that. So, let's see. Where can I go from here? There's a lot of questions I want to ask.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. 19 years you've been curating people that come to your camp.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of people, actually
Mhm.
Isaac, Michelle,
Oh,
and
Isaac's one of my
yeah, Isaac
favorites.
is amazing. And the
Yep.
founder of Second Life, I forgot his name.
That would be Philip
That's
Rosedale.
right, Philip. Great
Yeah.
guys, right? So
Wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, so what when you make your selection, because these are first class citizens, my experience of your campmates so far, and how what sort of mental models do you think about when you think, oh, okay, this person would be great for this camp because
Yeah.
we're all
There's a,
about, whatever.
yeah, I don't know. That's a really tough question to answer. I'll give you, I think one, we've just been very fortunate to curate people like we have. It's happened over a 20-year span. Um, the, the thing I get a kick out of is that Burning Man is not a vacation. For some people, it is. But the way that I position the camp is like, hey, this is a working camp. This is a giant pain in the ass, and it's a
Actually, why don't you say
considerable.
more about that? Because there are different kinds of camps,
Yes.
right? The
Yeah.
kinds where you just show up, do very minimum, and you
Yeah.
have staff taking care of things for you, plug and plays, and then versus the working camp
Yeah. We
that you
don't
describe.
participate that way.
So, to educate people who aren't
Yeah.
familiar, can you talk a little bit more about the spectrum of different camps?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the camp, everyone in camp has a job, and so it comes in a variety of ways. So we can only take X amount of people with us for set. So this year we had, I believe, 26 people, and
Wait, what?
so we
Set? What is that?
for camp set. So you're setting the camp. So
Oh,
you
build.
come in a day or two early.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Burning Man wants you to have the camp operational by Sunday, which is opening day, and so we typically will show up either on a Friday or a Saturday. Logistically, I couldn't get there until Saturday morning, so that was it. It was what it was, and but I had multiple rigs all converge in one spot, and then we have storage in Gerlach, so we went to our storage and put it in a 24-foot trailer, and then we took that caravan and went into the event. And so we we have about a 26-person set crew. We get there and immediately just the doors come down and you start pulling everything out. You start mapping. We have rulers and guides, and we divide into teams. So this year we had an electrical team that was setting our electrical grid, so that we want to run just one generator that powers. I think we had 15 rigs. So it's just so much more cost effective. It's so much, it cuts down the noise significantly. We run this really quiet diesel generator. It powers the whole camp, it powers the kitchen, it powers the saloon and the sound system and lighting and all that stuff. And then we had a crew that was setting the saloon. There's a facade that looks like a movie set, and so that was a separate crew that was setting that. And then we had another crew that was setting the kitchen. And so we have like a common space and kitchen that we set. It's kind of like backstage, and we set it up and we light it, we decorate it, and then so we had all these crews running simultaneously, and myself and another guy, Joe, we were just walking around between each crew and lending a hand where we could, and we were blown away by how fast the camp set this year. Never set camp in one day. It's fantastic. Very cohesive group this year.
What would you attribute to that expediency to?
I
Is it
don't
the
know.
capabilities of the people? Is it the chemistry? Is it just the
No
planning?
idea. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think also one of the biggest factors was I had set a call time that morning, Saturday morning, to that everybody meet at 6 a.m. And usually you have people that are still in the shower or whatever. Man, 6 a.m. rolled around and we had we had our group. I was blown away. People were prepared and ready. They had their gloves up. Let's go. And so we all caravanned out to the storage. Everybody was there on the same time. We got everything into the out of storage and into our transport trailers. Got on playa. That, you know, getting through the greeters is about 2-3 hour experience. And then we get to camp and everybody's showing up at the same time, and boom, we're off and running. I think just getting up that early, and just getting out there, I think it was typically, we probably roll in to camp around 4 or 5. And, you know, you get about a half day in, and then it spills over to the next day. You pretty much take that whole day. The one thing we did differently this year than most is we did have crews that were running independently. And usually we kind of do it all in this kind of, we just kind of do it all at once, but no one's really leading. And so this year we kind of went, okay, you're leading this. And we had some conversations beforehand. You're going to lead this. You're going to lead this. And so I think that was a big differentiator, is that the people kind of knew where they were going to land. And then as people trickle in, that, you know, because we have about a 60-person camp, so half the camp shows up after set, and they trickle in on Sunday and Monday, and but then we put them to work immediately. So it's either, you know, well, the dinner crews are so we run dinners. I've never seen a camp do it like we do, but this is how we do it. So dinners start on Sunday, and they serve Sunday through Saturday, and we divide into teams of about 8, and so we assign them a theme, and they can take over the theme. They can control it. So we had an assignment on one group, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't want to do that. We want to do a tiki night," and I was like, "Tiki night? Yeah, do the tiki night." So they took over their theme. And they go out and they buy decorations. They prepare everything with top shelf ingredients. So we that's our one criteria, is you only have to prepare a dinner one time. So make it count. So the teams go way out. They get a playlist together that we play over our sound system. They get decorations. They prepare special drinks. The food is amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's one part of curating the meal teams, is you have to make sure that the meal leads can cook, so that they get everybody in line, right? And you know, you end up having while you end up eating great out there, that's one part of it. But the reason that we do it is it forces the entire camp to reconnect. The entire camp comes back in the evening. You know, this person got up early and went to the temple, and this person went and saw art, and these guys went and danced at some day club, and on and on. Everyone's having these experiences. There's no way for 60 people to just have the same experience all together, but they do have the same experience in the evenings. And we typically serve around 7 to 8, and it's just a way for everybody to just kind of reconnect, have a nice meal. What did you guys do today? That team gets praised because they always bring it. So we usually have a little clapping ceremony for them, and everybody greatly appreciates it. But they plan, they cook, they prepare, they serve, and then they clean up. So it's a 6-hour ordeal, and you know, it's kind of a pain in the ass. And some people don't get it. Like this year, we had a couple of versions that just absolutely did not get it. And then they had the experience and they went, I got it now. Like, that was awesome. I'm so glad that you forced me into that. I'm like, cool. Then you got it. Cool. But and then the next day, the next team comes in and they take all, you know, it's a clean slate. So then they put up all their decorations and they get their playlist cured up, and there, you know, there's true excitement. They want to. It becomes a bit of a competition where people are like, oh yeah, well, check this out. And so they go all out. It's fun. It's really cool.
I like it.
It's really cool.
There's something about shared hardship that really deepens bonds.
Explain.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've experienced is, you know, I hear people, especially virgins, who come and say, oh, I don't want to do, you know, menial stuff, tasks. I
Yes.
want to be put to
Yeah.
shifts. I want to enjoy my burn. I
Totally.
understand where they're coming from. At the
Yeah.
same time, part of the Burning Man ethos is you do the work, share the workload together,
Yeah.
and
Totally.
and in the shared hardship, the adversity, the
Yeah.
shift, the time invested, the heat, then those
Yeah.
that you work with, you get to deepen the bonds together even more.
Totally. Yeah. That's a great perception. And one that probably people don't necessarily walk away with if they're not in a theme camp, because this year was extremely harsh. We were
Hmm.
battling heat. I got heat stroke
Hmm.
one of the days because we had music, live instruments going, so I was playing with the sun beating down on me, and I did an hour set, and then took a break and went and cooled down, and did another hour set, took a break, cooled down, then did another hour set. Now I'm like really starting to feel it, and then started cooking. And I was on the meal team that night, and
Mm.
I got halfway through it. I was like, I'm either going to have to go to the med tent or I'm going to have to sit under an air conditioner because
Hmm.
my body was shutting down. But
Mm.
getting back to your shared, I could not agree more. We had this happen this year where there were several people that didn't understand the whole working camp thing. One thing that I do is we start talking about Burning Man. I don't. So the event's over, and I will not talk about it until February. So
Mm.
people, uh, start, sending messages in November, October, December, January. I'm like, I'm not responding to this because you do need to do things that are not Burning Man. So, but we do start talking about it in February,
Hmm.
and so our first comm is like, hey, are we even going to do the camp this year? I always kind of put it to our people. It's like it can't just be me. I can't do all that. So this year we put it out that, hey, what do you guys think? Are we doing Burning Man this year? We've had a 3-year hiatus, and so I put the message out, and within 6 hours we had almost 50 people that were 100% in. I was like, whoa, we're going to Burning Man. So that was cool. But then the messages start. And so I deliver about one a month, and I just start painting a picture. And I start saying, okay, well, I don't have to paint this picture for people that have been in the camp. That really the messages are for new people, or it could be for existing people if we're changing some things up. And also you learn every year, so things get added to your roster of things that you want to communicate. But the bottom line is you start setting the standard. You start setting that we're going to hit here, and you start setting that goal, and then you just keep re-emphasizing. Every message is, hey, this is where we're headed. This is what we're doing. These are the expectations. It's a working camp. And then the next message comes, and you say some goofy things, and then here's the expectations. And sometimes I even differ the expectations. I won't hit them with 20. I'll hit them with my top 3, and then I'll hit them with another 3, and then I'll hit them with another 3, and ultimately culminating to a message that we call the State of Our Union, and I send that out.
Oh, you
Usually
have a thing called State of Our Union.
yeah, and so
I
we
like it.
do.
I like it.
It's about 3 weeks out, and it's the final message, and I'll just say, okay, so here's this team is showing up. This is our early set crew. We also encourage everybody to show up by Sunday. Well, that used to not be a rule, but about 5 years ago we changed it as an experiment, because what was happening was you have the early set crew come in, and they take ownership,
Hmm.
right? They take ownership of, hey, we did this,
Mm.
and then you got people showing up on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or even Thursday, and they just kind of plop in the middle of it. And people are, I mean, it's not a rude thing, but you could just smell it. It's this thing that's in the air that who are these people? What they're camping with us? Because we
Mm.
just busted our ass and built this whole thing. And
Hmm.
you kind of see, I've seen it for years, where people start to. I love that they take ownership of it. And then, so then we just kind of drew a line in the sand and said, well, here's our early set crew, and these are the guys that, or the guys and girls that are going to help us set. But it's imperative that the people at least be there on opening day, so that they can help us take it into the end zone. So that there's, we got to put up lights, or we got to light the facade, or we got to decorate the saloon, or we've got to take all of our kitchen stuff and actually make it a functioning kitchen. That's where that secondary crew comes in, and they take ownership. I decorated this. I set up the kitchen. I put up the lighting, so that everybody has a buy-in. That's why, we kind of switched it up about 5 years ago, and we were like patting ourselves on the back going, that was the most cohesive thing that we've ever done for the camp, was to make sure that everybody had a hand in it. And it's a very effective tool. And go ahead.
So I have a question there. Because it's a volunteering organizational, effort.
Yeah.
What I've seen, especially in any kind of volunteering organizations, is typically the weight of infrastructure and operation lies a few people, a small percentage, heavy on them, the organizers and so forth.
Yeah.
And then few people get to basically walk away with very little responsibilities because it's an organizational thing.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that, it's equitable, that is fair, so that way it's not all on you or a handful of people that you don't get to enjoy Burning Man and what it has to offer.
Yeah.
And then it's there are consequences or accountability for people to show up versus just leaving scot-free, like show up on Thursday and then leave on Saturday and say, all right, see you guys later. It was great.
Yeah. That's a scenario that I avoid with everything I got. Our hard rule is you have to be there for set or strike. This year we had, I'll explain where there's exceptions. We had a couple that just had twins, and the babies are now about 9 months old, and they just happen to have parents that live in Lake Tahoe. So they have been huge contributors and helped to build our saloon, and literally help build the saloon. And this year they weren't going to come, and I had caught wind of it, that they weren't coming because they couldn't be there for set or strike. They could only come in the middle and just do 3 or 4 days, and then they got to go back to get the babies, and it's a critical time. And I caught wind of it. I was like, no. If you really want to come to this event, you have carte blanche because you've earned it. Whereas, so
that's an exception.
There are exceptions to that.
What are the norm? How do you manage?
The norm is that you got to be there for set or strike.
Okay.
So I don't like when people come in post, and I don't like when they leave before. But sometimes you have life stuff going on. Like we had one campmate, also a huge contributor, but he and his girlfriend had to break out early. They came in for set, so they were there, but they had to break out early for a wedding. So, it's like, hey, that's life. That's, it's the girl, I think it was her sister's wedding. So she's like, I got to run. So of course that was all prearranged and all good. And, but, I think that people naturally filter themselves out. I have had experiences where you go out there and people just kind of blow it off. And so then you just kind of move on the next year. They
don't get invited back.
Yeah, it is by invitation, and we do kind of draw a line of like, hey, this is our crew and this is what we're going in with. One of the hard lines that I have is I'm not big on rangers being in the camp, and I appreciate the rangers. So I really do. I think they do.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that's.
I think they do a wonderful service.
Yeah, say more about that. Why?
Yeah, so I think they do a wonderful service to the community. I know a lot of rangers. It's a big ask. They are the world's worst campmates. Just the worst.
Why is that?
Because they're rangering. So it's like, okay, well, Tuesday is your meal night, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I can't do that. I'm out rangering.
I see.
Yeah, well, we're all going to go and do this thing. I can't, I'm rangering. We're going to be there for set. Yeah, but I got to go for my pre, thing. And we walk the playa and we do all this stuff. And I'm just like, so you're not in camp? And, if it was a one-time experience, fine. But when you have years of that, you just kind of go, okay, you should go camp with the Rangers because nobody knows who the fuck you are. Because, you're a part of this camp, but you're gone. And so it's just not a good relationship to the camp, especially if you're trying to build something and be cohesive and bring an offering to the community. And then you've got, and I've had instances where we had 3 Rangers in camp and they were ghosts, and all was the carcass of their motorhome, is in camp, and then they do these wacky shifts, and then they come home and they sleep, and then boom, they're out again on another shift. And she's like, "Who are these people?" And they're dear friends of mine. I love them, but it's like, okay, so we just kind of drew a line in the sand, and we just went, no more Rangers.
I got you.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
So how did you end up with saloons, drinks, music, and the size of 60? Because that's, an evolution, I'm sure. And you will continue to evolve, I'm sure. But how did you arrive here?
So at one point we grew the camp out. We had, I think one year we had about 110 people. Man, that was just a job. That was not enjoyable. And too many people, too many needs, very hard to focus that group. We did it and we had a successful experience, but it wasn't enjoyable for me. And so then the following year we capped it at 60. And
it was some arbitrary number that you just pull out of the sky.
Well, we've had obviously I've been out there and had the camp at like 25, especially in the early years. That makes for a very fun experience because it's just it's a tighter group. 60 is a great number for a variety of reasons. So 60 allows you to split good dinner teams out. So it's enough people to hit those dinner teams. Getting a group of about 25 to 26 people to go in for early set and then have the other half of the camp show up the next day really works. There's something about it that works. It's the right amount of people where people are friendly and want to interact. And there's somebody new. I want to go meet this person. At 100 people are like, okay, I give up. There's too many people. It's just too much. Right.
So Dunbar's number 150 didn't quite even get there. Just 100 people is way too many.
Way too many. Yeah. And so you see it, you try to see it through the experience of your campmates as well, because we've had groups of about 50, and that's a great number as well. I've always said that our magic number is 55. And if it's 50, that's fine. You can still get by with that. If it's 60, it just creates a little bit of a buffer where we're having problems with fuel this year, getting fuel delivered. So we had a team going out there to interface with the fuel company. We had problems with water because it was so dusty, and they shut the water delivery trucks down. So we had a team going out and picking up that. We had a new mayor this year. So my girl Deb wanted to take it off, and so I shoulder tapped my friend Angela, who's got a very, very eerily similar temperament to Deb, and so she became our mayor, and that was a learning experience for her to be out there and just kind of. I'm sitting on the side just seeing it from her eyes and seeing how she's handling all the adversity, and she did amazing. She was great, and so it's I think she put it the best. She's like, I agreed to do this, but I had no idea of all the working parts of this. And it wasn't until we were about a month out where she was she was asking questions. Well, what about this? Okay, I did this, and what about this? And this is handled, and what about this? And then she started putting it all together. She's like, I need to know more about all of this if I'm going to do this again. And I said, well, I didn't want to scare you. So I assigned you these 3 things. I want you to handle these things, and I'll pick up the rest. And then she's like, okay, next year we're going to divide and conquer. Like I need more buy-in. Absolutely. Next year you have it.
So putting in company terms, you are effectively the founder, right, with the tacit knowledge, and you have a GM, right, general, as a mayor, right, who runs the things, but you are the buffer, right? You have the tacit knowledge, and you can show up and boost operations if need be.
Yeah. Yeah, you had said something earlier that I keyed in on. You were talking about the balance of it all, and this year we did spread out a little bit more. Like I had a dear friend of mine, Joe. He and I were working on electrical, but some of it was a little bit challenging because we were trying to get the machine to work, and so we shoulder tapped another good friend of mine, Chris, that came over and really helped fill in some blanks. You have to get just really good at knowing people's core competencies, and then playing into that. Like, hey, you're good at this. Come here, check this out. This is yours. Own that.
So quick question there.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is a professional electrician or whatever, builder, things like that. I mean, I'm assuming most people are sort of hobbyists, right? They have some knowledge, but they're not professional at it.
Yeah.
And so you also want to give them an opportunity to try out some of these new responsibilities. How do you strike that balance between, knowing that they could do the job versus giving them an opportunity to possibly fail, but possibly succeed?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's hard to answer. I think it just comes through experience, and if you like, I'm a creative director by trade, and I know how to create something, and so you can sit and have a conversation with somebody about creation and like process and job flow or whatever the topic is surrounding that subject, and you can sniff within 10 minutes whether this is real or not, right? Because you're just so used to talking about it. Well, the same rules apply where you're hosting a camp and you start having conversations with people. Like, so I'll give you a perfect example. So my dear friend Rose, who's I think this was her 4th year in camp, she wants to do more, and so the more I learned about her, she's an events person. She hosts events for a living. And so this year she said, how can I help? And I said, well, we need help curating talent. I want more talent in the camp, meaning musicians, DJs. We've got the sound system. We've got a control board. We've got microphones. I wanted to do this in 19, but we didn't quite pull it together. But I really wanted to do it this year. And she knocked it out of the park. She went and started hitting forums and every day we had people showing up. Hey, I'm here to play for you guys. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I love that she had a calendar and signed everybody. People either they're on time. A lot of people were strangely on time.
By time.
I get it, and I don't expect people to be there on time. But man, I got to tell you, like, people were largely on time. It was unusual. I think I think like people really like bringing their art, whether it's a bass player or a guitar player or a DJ. They really want to come out and play for people. They're there to do that because that's their gift. So we have this platform, and they show up on time, and they're ready to show people a good time with whatever way that comes out. And it's cool. We had a great people I had never met before, just coming, all just through reaching out and shoulder tapping people. And one would show up, and they would have a 3-hour set, and then another person would come in and have a 2-hour set, and another person would come in and have a 1-hour set. I was like, man, that is fantastic. It was really, really inspiring to see that culminate just by her asking a question. Can I take this and run with it? Absolutely. I love it. So yeah, she killed it.
That's awesome. So on that, so it sounds like there's a culture of accountability. And Michelle actually made a point about the OK, his observation of being there the first year. He said you had the perfect balance of accountability and openness.
Yeah, that's
how
definitely happened over time.
Yeah, if you could concretize, so again, make your response, to someone who may be thinking about starting a camp or running their camp for the first year, and it was a disaster because people weren't accountable to the thing. What would you say to these aspirational camp organizers so that they can hit that balance between accountability and at the same time openness, democracy, right, flow, all these beautiful qualities that the playa provides?
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one to explain, but let me give it a shot. So definitely there's been an evolution over time. I mean, I always take into consideration that Burning Man is comprised of volunteers, and people are out there because they're pulled in for whatever reason. They want to go see the art, or they want to go dance in a nightclub, whatever it is. So I always take that into consideration, that I want them to have their experience. I don't want it to be this job. But at the
military
same time,
camp.
Yeah, military camp. But at the same time, over the years, you have people that are truly they understand what it is that we're building. So, if I was bringing out a group of virgins, if it was a 90 virgin camp, and which I've actually seen camps do this, where they bring out all these volunteers, and man, it's just a clusterfuck, man. It's crazy because it's there's no cohesiveness. They're all strangers, and you've got somebody leading the charge, but you even see how they lead the charge. They're like, it's like a job, and they're trying to do big things out there. I'm like, okay, all right, that's cool. Don't want to do that. So you mentioned Philip Rosedale, right? So Philip is a doer, and this just by a conversation, right? But then he comes out there and he starts, all right, well, I don't really know, but I'm a logical person. I don't know how to do, but here, let me just, and he's just in. He's just a very visceral, hands-on kind of guy. And so Michelle, well, Philip introduced me to Michelle, and Philip's like, don't worry about it. This guy knows. He's got it. I'm like, cool. I say no more. I usually I'll sit and like break bread or just at least have like a video conference so that I could get it like a feel. Nope, didn't need that. All I needed was Philip to say, no, dude, this guy's gold. Cool. So we that's a no-brainer. The people that are a little questionable, that's who I'll go after and try to understand, and then work with them to set expectations. I even had dear friends out this year, dear friends of mine. Like, I love these guys, but they were like, complaining. Okay, what are we doing? We're gonna build something out there, and then you want me to be a part of a dinner thing, and this is sounding like a lot of work. I'm like, trust me, just trust me. and then I had other campmates working on them too, just give it one shot. And we went out there, and we all it took was for them to get sweaty and to see results, right? So we set camp. They were part of the set. This is a virgin going out there and saying, I want the whole experience. So we set camp, and that's all it took. Just 6 hours of work. And he was like, I get it. Like, there was just this excitement. You can see it in his eyes. Like, I totally understand now. I got this. And then they did their dinner team, and they were fired up and ready to go. And I was just like, this was the same person that was saying, I don't really want to do all this. I just want to go out there. But then there's a pride. about it, right? Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to go out there and build something and give them that experience of like, hey, we actually came out here and did this through adversity, through extreme heat, through sandstorms, all of it. And then we take it all back down and we put it back in storage and we wait for the next year. And that whole experience, he was like, I was not prepared for how transformative that would be. I'm like, good, the mission accomplished. That's cool.
Have you ever dealt with prima donnas, like a
Yes,
celebrity or some famous founder or
we've had
whatever those
celebrities
things?
in camp, but not. It's been all great experiences. I'll tell you one experience I had that it cracked me up. Very artistic. Well, the woman it was a couple, and she was extremely artistic. Super into music and constant. She just had this really artsy feel about her. And her husband was kind of along for the ride, but they were, just kind of. They really wanted to go to Burning Man, and so we fired it up. And at that time, we weren't a saloon. We had this art car thing, and it's just a lot of work. You're setting camp, you're setting the art car, you're getting the kitchen set, all of these things that go into it. And I just thought this was a no-brainer for these guys. They hated it. They hated the entire experience. They just didn't get it. It just wasn't their cup of tea. I was like, wow, that's amazing to me. But turn the corner 2 years later, and there they are. They're out there. And I ran into them. I'm like, okay. It was almost like, what are you doing out here? And they said, it took a couple of years for this to sink in for us. And we realized, wow, that was an amazing experience. We're just needed to process it. And then they came out and they were part of a big theme camp, huge theme camp, 300 person theme camp.
Wow.
And they wanted that experience. It was like, okay, I give up. I don't have a litmus test for how this is going to play out. It's like, okay, whatever. And then I had another experience. A dear friend of mine, I think she came out and was a part of the very first corral, and very prim and proper. She's that girl that you go to a restaurant with, and she says, well, I don't want the cream sauce and I want this thing. And can you take the arugula out? Because I don't really like arugula. And she just has like a soliloquy with the waiter sitting there. Yeah, it's fantastic. You're just like, I love her. She's so great. And she wanted to come to Burning Man. I was like, I don't think this is really going to work. I don't see her thriving out here.
Right.
And we got out there, and I couldn't see her dirty. I couldn't see her busting her ass and taking things, trying to set things. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't visualize it. I'm like, okay, whatever. You want to go out there and see it? Fine. Let's go. She's a dear friend of mine. And we got out there, and she busted her ass. That dust didn't do anything to her. She looked like a beautiful angel. And I was just like, well, I give up. I don't have an explanation for that. I don't know truly who's going to work out there. It's an experiment.
So what I'm actually getting from this is whatever preconceived notions that we may have about this person, like, oh, this is gonna be a great burner, may not be. This is not gonna work. May totally work.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I've seen, I mean, obviously, this is 20-year history, is you have this interchange of people. So this year, myself and my wife were the only original campmates in camp. So, it started out, we took a group of 20 out, and then that grew to like 35, and that grew to 50 something, and then it went all the way up to 100 and something people, and then we started ratcheting it back. And there's been, people have kids, or they get married, or they move, and it's no longer convenient. There's just, life gets in the way. You might have an ailing parent, whatever it is. There's no longer room in their lives for this thing. And So you have these batons that are being not literally tossed, but there's these swaths of people that are exiting and people that are entering, and then that exits and enters, and that exit, it's cyclical. It repeats onto itself. And if you look at our camp now and you go back 10 years, there's probably 20 strong.
Mhm.
And if you took a camp from now and you went back 20, I mean, clearly it was just my wife and I were the only core members. But then what's cool about that too is you might have members that haven't been in 5-6 years, and you're like, okay, well, it's not their thing, and then they're like, okay, we're coming, and there's no, it requires no effort. They literally plug in, they know they got it, and there's no like, okay, guys, this is how this is done. There's just none of that.
Right.
They just,
the efficiency, the communication, they
yeah,
already got
it's
it.
it's like, oh, you've been here for
Yeah.
you've done this 10 times.
Yeah.
And even though they took a 5-year break, they plug right back in. They're there for set. They bust their ass. They're great for the dinner teams. They're there for strike. They totally got it.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that requires no brain activity. It's like they're on autopilot. It's great.
So on that note, I want to ask questions about continuity and community, but I want to wrap up what we were talking about, the striking a balance between accountability. Okay,
Yeah.
so real quick. So you had talked about people who complied and who gets it right away. What
Mhm.
about people who just didn't get it, didn't comply?
Yeah.
What do? Do you watch them? Do you just sit down with them and tell them like, hey, this is really important and the consequences such?
Yeah.
Right, those type
So
of conversations. How do you manage the people who don't comply,
yeah.
who didn't get it?
So I've only truly ever gotten upset with someone, I think twice. And one was a person I didn't know, and they were a referral, and the person that referred him said, "Oh, this guy's he'll be great," and I was like, "Okay," and then these just really oddball questions started coming over, and it was really he was getting a little forceful and wanted to march to his own drum, and it was just like, I just went back to the person that invited him. I'm like, okay, tell me who this person is in your life. Oh, well, he's a friend of a friend. I'm like, wait a second. So this isn't your like dear friend? And he said, well, no. I mean, I know him, but I don't. He's not like one of in my inner circle. I'm like, okay, so you're gonna now uninvite him because I don't want to deal with this guy. Too many like oddball things. He's getting a little rude. This is your problem. Take it off my plate. I don't want to deal with this guy. So that was one instance.
Okay.
Another was we had a guy come in. It was a couple, but he just completely missed his dinner crew. He unfortunately was a part. He had all the ingredients, but he let them go bad. I mean, it was just a clusterfuck through and through, and it was very frustrating. And so he was the only person where I've ever walked up to him and I'm like, dude, you're not going to be invited back. Like this pissed me off because he was just so aloof. And I, he was a referral from another friend. I'm like, okay, you get this guy out of here. Like it was just a bad experience. And just, he was almost combative about just being in step with the camp. He was a nonconformist, which I get. I'm a bit of a nonconformist too. All right, sure. Who isn't that goes to Burning Man? But we are trying to do something out there, and we are trying to create something, and it does take a cohesive group to step in unison. And it's a pretty simple ask. Be there for set or be there early, participate. You've got you've got saloon duties where you're slinging drinks to people that come in. That's just fun, and everybody looks forward to that. It's an easy ask. It's not a very complicated camp, and that's by design, right? I see people out there doing really amazing things. I'm like, I don't want no part of that. I just want to keep it simple.
Say more about that, actually. Say more about that before we.
Well, you know, I
Yeah.
know camps that are two to 300 people big, and they bring out the fire effects, and they have the full concert audio systems, and it's an experience. I get it. I love what they're doing. It's so cool, and it adds so much flavor to the event. But they show up a week in advance to set that thing, and they have cranes coming out, and it's like, okay, I don't think I want to be a part of it. I mean, I literally camped next to them and saw these beautiful things go up. Like, I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to. It's just it'll take a month, and then obviously it's really expensive. So they're fundraising throughout the entire year. In fact, I know a group that just went out and they just brought it, and probably 250 people it takes to pull that off. And a week later, they held their first fundraiser for next year.
Oh, wow.
Like, okay, all right, whatever. It's like a decompression coming off playa, whatever. But
yeah,
I don't have that in me. I don't want to part. I mean, I guess if it was my job and I was a promoter, okay, great. But that's not my job. And
right.
yeah, I just want to keep it simple, and we have a simple footprint that we do, and we've got a good crew, and it's just a lot easier to pull off. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
What
Thank
the
you.
core,
And it
core
didn't
was.
sound like there's a lot of corrective, smackdown, so to speak, other than you don't get invited back, or
Yeah, there's been several. There's been just a few people over time that just weren't pulling their weight, and I usually won't step in, and I might let a year or two go by and like, hey, come on, you try to bring this person along. They have good years, they have bad years. But when it becomes, outwardly a problem, I've had some uncomfortable situations where you're like, let's just take a break.
yeah,
And then you double back, and that person is now a little butthurt, and you're like, okay, I understand. And I always, like I said, going back, I was saying something earlier, I always try to keep perspective that it is an event for fun,
right.
and that you're trying to bring a little secret sauce out there, but at the same time keep everybody happy and fun, and this is engaging. And I don't know. I don't know how to. I mean, clearly we have struck a line and said, okay, this is what it takes to be in the camp. But people typically will step up if you hit them continuously with, here's the expectation, it's right here, this is it, and it happens over a 9-month period. By the time they get there, they got it. They understand. Okay,
Yeah.
I got to jump through a couple of hoops in order to be invited back. It's not that hard. Yeah, it's easy.
Got it. So speaking of continuity, friendship, ecosystem, over 19 years, do you actively try to curate the growth of this community, or is it just ebbs and flow of life? People flow in when it's it's their time, people flow out when it's their time. You don't actively try to manage it.
No, I keep it really I don't. All I am is a suggester. So I don't try to hard sell people on it. I think people, if they're truly going to do something like this, they truly have to have their own reasons for going out there and doing it. There has to be a draw. And all I can do is make suggestions. So I'll say, okay, well, this is what we do, and this is what it's all about. And some people, I will go after a little bit more aggressively, just because I believe that they'll flourish out there, and especially if it's like a virgin. And it might be a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year conversation where you're just planting seeds. You're just like, I think you would be great out there. And that happens with other people in camp too. Like, I have a core group of probably 20 to 25, and they are truly in step, and I'll get messages. It could be 6 months out. Hey, I think these guys would be amazing. They'll give me like, the 2-paragraph rundown, like I got from Philip's wife on Michelle and Chloe, of like, hey, this is who they are. This is what this has been their experience. This isn't their first burn. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, sold, done, got it. Let's move. Whereas other people might require a little bit more hand holding, especially if it's somebody that I'm seeking out. I will subtly suggest, and ultimately they have to come to I can't say, hey, this is what we're doing, you're coming with us, and I won't accept no. Come on, let's go. It's like,
I don't mean the evangelizing aspect of it. I mean the people who have been camping. Do you actively say, hey, this is our community, and you try to grow this community and people, interconnecting with each other?
Yes.
That kind of management at all, or not really?
Yeah,
just whatever happens.
Well, we do things, we all are dear friends, and there are, like, we have a decompression that we do ourselves every year. So this year we're doing it in the first weekend of November. And we pick a central point. So I live in San Diego, so we're going out to Paso Robles at a campground there. And people will come from the Bay Area. People will come from Los Angeles and San Diego. I think we've got some people coming from Idaho. And we'll just converge there for 3 days and go do a little wine tasting, be normal, go to the ocean, let the dogs run, stuff like that. It's just a decom for us. Some of us vacation together, so we might go out to Mexico, or we might go to Europe or whatever. That's always fun too. We are connected and stay connected throughout the year. And it's not just about Burning Man. We are dear friends, and that's, I believe, is the key component of cohesiveness. And it really has nothing to do with Burning Man. It just, you just love these people, right? This is your tribe. So
yeah.
And this year, even though I had multiple experiences this year that were interesting to me. I had a girl that I was explaining that we took her out there, and she just forged ahead and flourished, and she didn't even see the open ply. It was that story that I was telling you about her. Her name's Carmen. And I loved seeing the event through her eyes. I had several campmates that I hadn't necessarily connected with strongly in years past. And I made it a point to go and just kind of sit and talk with them and hang with them. And I got a kick out of that, and we had new campmates that one of them is a creative like me. And so we had a lot to talk about. So we sat for a couple of hours and just kicked that ball around about, being in an agency model and what that's like. And we just had a lot of commonalities. So I connected with her fantastically. And, I don't know. I think that the cohesiveness, the number one thing I like to see in cohesiveness is I'll see like a Facebook post, or I'll see something where people that didn't know each other and they only met at Burning Man in our camp are now out on a motorcycle ride, or they're camping over in, New Mexico or whatever. And it's like, oh, that is so cool that these relationships, these bonds happen. And there's relationships that flourish and come off the playa, and boom, they're doing something with those people. And I just love to see that. I love that all culminates from this center point where we said, we're going to go do this thing as a group. And these people don't know each other, and now they do, and now they're friends, and now they're hanging. That's so cool. So it's part of the experiment, right?
So would you say that's part of the success metrics, KPI, of putting up all the effort, all the work, all the fundraising, all of the shenanigans, that
Right.
people may have in moments?
Well, ultimately, it is about the community, right? I mean, that's why I do it. I love not only to give back to the strangers that we don't know, but we meet out there, but I also that's the thing I get a kick out of. I love that you take a group of people and you give them a common goal. And you say, these are the things we're going to go do. They personalize it, and then we go out there and we run and to see that come to life is a true treat for me. That's why I do it.
Last question, actually second to the last question. What would you say to someone who is now inspired thanks to your testimonial running camps, but also still a little intimidated because they don't know, it's uncertain, right? It just seems a lot of work, a lot of bandwidth, a lot of bullshit you got to put up with.
Sure.
So
a lot of lobbying.
Lobbying
for position.
exactly.
All of that stuff.
So what would you say to that person?
I would say KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So I've seen plenty of people go out there and they create this lofty goal. And some of them achieve it. Some of them go out there and knock it out of the park. But if it's super complicated and requires a lot of technology and power and all these things, and you're a first time person kind of going out there, I've seen a lot of people fail. Somebody shared a stat with me this year that I was amazed by. 30%. I think the stat was 30% of art cars no show. So
what does that mean?
So to take an art car to Burning Man is an endeavor. So you've got to you've got to lobby first, and you got to like put your plans to the DMV, and then they've got to like sniff it, and it's like it takes 2 hours to fill out their application. And you have to answer all of these things about safety and lighting and the structure, and before you even get into this thing, you've got to have a fully baked plan. And here's what's screwy about it. You have no idea if they're going to approve your plan, but you got to start building. So you put the best plan you can together, and you throw it their way, and you're like, I have no choice. I got to start building this thing because it ain't going to happen overnight, right? Some of these builds, I did a build that took 6 months. So you start in on it, and you might be 10 grand, 15 grand into this thing, just with your fingers crossed, just going, I hope these guys approve this because we are up shit creek if they don't. And I've never had it not approved, but I've had plenty of people that didn't get approved because I'm a planner by trade and I'm an artist by trade, so I can get renderings, pretty convincing renderings generated. And but the stat that I heard, somebody was telling me that 30% of the people that jump through all of those hoops and fill out that application and submit things and all of that, 30% of them don't even show up. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's an amazing failure rate. So, for whatever it was, maybe they just didn't have the right team, or the idea was too complicated, and they ran out of money, which is obviously a thing. The art cars are expensive. And so for a variety of reasons, it never even sees the plat. So especially if you're doing this for a first time, just keep it simple. Do something simple, something that you can easily rally people around. It's not too. We had a camp that was flinging beignets in the mornings and the afternoons. But they came rolling through our camp several times with hot beignets. I'm like, that's simple. I love that. It's easy. Or our dear friends down the way, Altitude Lounge, Greg that heads that up. They build, I think it's a 6-story scaffolding. They put these really bright lights on it, and you can go up the scaffolding and kind of see the playa from up there. And super simple offering, but it's something that they do every year. They've got it down. Doesn't take a big camp. I think their camp size this year was 25 people, and so they came in and set camp or they set the scaffolding in a day, and they ratchet it down and all that stuff. Super simple offering. Doesn't require pyrotechnics. This is a very simple thing, And then I've seen people go out and do art installations in the open playa, and I greatly appreciate that. It's beautiful work that happens out there. Especially, I will check out your interview with the temple builder because wow, that was inspirational this year. He did an exceptional job. Good for him.
Yeah, he has COVID right now, so let's send him some good
I
vibes for
I
recovery.
got it coming off the playa this year myself too. We
Oh
had
yeah,
seven campmates that came down with it, and I was the seventh. I
wow.
was the sixth actually.
Well, you seem perfectly
You
healthy
know,
now.
so all I had was a playa cough. I just had a
Yeah,
cough
same
that
here.
was, yeah, I couldn't get rid of it for several days. And my grandson was coming over.
Grandson.
Yeah, my wife and I have a grandson.
Wow,
Yeah, so
I would not have believed it if you didn't tell
yeah,
me.
so we have two daughters. Our youngest is 25 and our oldest is 34.
Wow,
And
amazing.
so we got started. We were high school sweethearts and we got started early. So it's
Got
been
it.
a journey.
Got
And
it.
so my wife said, you got that cough, and I said, oh, it's just a cough. And she goes, well, I want you to take a COVID test. Well, we can take a COVID test, but I don't have COVID. And she gave me the test. She's like, you have COVID, Mister. I was like blown away. I could not believe it because had no achy body, didn't have no
Mm,
flu symptoms, no runny nose, nothing.
mm.
And I never did. It never. I just tested positive for like 4 days, and then it tested negative, and it was gone.
Okay.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Steve, any last words that you wanted to share with anyone who is interested about starting camp or interested about Burning Man or wanted to be a camp organizer or want to be part of OK Corral?
Yeah.
What would you say is like, hey, if you remember this one thing, remember this?
Well, I think that the KISS is a key component, especially if you're going to go out there for the first time. Keep the group at 20, 25. Um, don't make it too complicated. Like even our camp can be a little complicated at times. We have a water cube that gets delivered so that we have fresh water for all the rigs. I think we had 15 rigs this year, and everybody was pulling from the water cube. Um, we have a central generator, which complicates things, right? I mean, it's great because you have one Jenny running everything, but it also requires fuel and all of that stuff. We have a whole electrical grid that we roll out. Complications, right? I mean, we haven't had that in years past, but in the last 10 years, we've gotten a little bit more sophisticated. Um, Camp dues are a must. So our dues this year, I think we're set at $315 per person, and it allows us to, we had some things that needed to be fixed, so we got that fixed. It pays for our storage for the year. This year, we had our main on our speaker system broke, so we'll have to get that fixed for next year. That'll come out of next year's dues. But there's just a lot of infrastructure, fuel for the kitchen, and just a variety of things that we were also out of practice this year. So there's a 3-year break between the last time we were on playa, so we didn't necessarily have a strong inventory, so we were like kind of pulling everything out, and so we have a whole full list of things that need to change for next year to be operational. And that's an evolution. Try to find something that you can all sync on, that's easy to execute, and don't get too lofty. As time ticks away and you start to develop that crew that you can depend on at least for 2 to 3 to 4 years, then you can get you can turn up the volume a little bit.
Yeah. Got it. I love it.
Yeah.
Actually, one last question. I know that
Mm-hmm.
I promised that was the last question. Here's the
That's
last
okay.
question.
I don't mind.
19 years,
Mm-hmm.
and Burning Man is such a transformational container. In my mind, with any kind of transformation, the event itself is one thing, right? It's beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
it's great, all that beautiful things. But to
Mm-hmm.
me, it's the integration. What lesson did you learn? Did you clarify? What action you're going to take from that? Do you offer any kind of integration plans, having done this for 19 times, to
Not
yourself,
following
but also
the
to your community?
I'm not following the exact definition of the question. Integration plan. Can you be a little bit more specific?
Sure. So any kind of transformational events,
Mm-hmm.
meditation, Burning Man, is
Okay.
huge for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. And
Mm-hmm.
then from that, there are rising lessons that you can extract from that,
Yeah.
right? You journal about it, you have
Sure.
conversation about it, you have
Yeah.
lessons. Then you also put into plans like, hey,
Right.
here are some of the things I'm going to implement in my life based
Yes.
on the insights that I learned. Do you you yourself, what kind of integration plans and actions do you
Yeah. That's
do?
okay. Now I
Or
understand your question. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
or
big question, man. So yeah, the event did change how I interacted with my children. It changed how I interacted with my parents, with my friends, even with my colleagues. Um, one of the, I this year has been a tough year for me professionally, just because we're just in a lot of flux in my professional life, and we're scaling things here and trying to grow this here, and it's just been very stressful. And I was definitely not in the mental state to be out there this year, just because I was so preoccupied with my professional obligations. And then I had I got about halfway out there, and I felt like I was there for reasons to connect with joy. And when you get so concentrated on you know running a business with say 100 employees, is there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, and it can be very stressful at times. And so going out there and just unplugging and just being in that moment, and even though you're stressed about these things, I just kind of went, I there is joy in this. And it was like a cathartic thing for me to kind of come to realization that I needed that, and I didn't realize I needed it, right? And so yeah, I would say that there every year delivers. Some years you're kind of on autopilot. I would say 19 was an autopilot year for me personally, just because there were no major curveballs. The weather was perfect. The camp went off without a hitch. We didn't have any mechanical problems. It was a very enjoyable experience. Therefore, it didn't really put you emotionally through the paces. But this year, I went in with kind of a heavy heart, just kind of going, okay, lots going on there. But I've made this commitment to my camp to organize it and get it out and get it going. And then we started having problems. So we had camp set great, but then we had problems with our electrical, and so we were tuning that. And we had problems with deliveries, and so we were tuning that. And it just added. By the time we got to the end of the event, I think everybody was like, "Man, we truly faced some adversity this year." And the camp as a whole, that was one. It's part of my experiment is, how do they handle adversity, right? I mean, when everything goes right, okay, great. But like, we handled adversity beautifully. And it was there's lessons to be learned in that. It was like, wow, look at that. Like, everybody just powered through and didn't let it affect them. They just, were solution people as opposed to problem people. And it was great. It was great to see, great to witness. Yeah. Transformational.
beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
Steve, I want to take a moment to just really thank you for sharing
Thank you.
what you have shared over the 19 years of running this camp.
Absolutely.
You know,
And as you plot for next year, please keep me in mind. I would love to talk about, if you're truly going to do that, talk about how to organize that, and I can share with you spreadsheets and things that we do, tools we use, and language that we use, and all of that, just to kind of
yeah,
get people moving in a cohesive direction.
I would say here are some top takeaways that I got from our conversation. One is 6 months out,
Yeah.
start to have conversations with people about
Oh
what it
yeah.
means to camp. start to communicate responsibilities and expectations, because ultimately that's that duration, the regularity, sets
Mm-hmm.
the culture of what's it like, what's
Mm-hmm.
expected, from the
Yeah.
citizens of this village, this camp.
Yeah. Totally.
Choose your people wisely, right?
Yep. That's a big one.
The core 24.
Right.
And also the last thing is, as you say, last, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
All right. It's very easy to get inspired by, let's say, the Playa Alchemist groups, right? The huge, beautiful
Yeah.
pyramids. At the same time, it comes with a lot of overhead and infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And
I
and
love that those guys bring that out there. I really, truly do. Or like, we're all familiar now. Everybody says the words Mayan warrior, the art car that goes out there. How could
yeah,
you not revel in that? Those guys bring that. They drive that in from the Yucatan, from the
yeah,
bottom
wow.
of Mexico,
Oh,
and
wow.
that's a whole group of people that just wow.
Yeah,
That's a tremendous effort. What a
yeah,
beautiful creation. I have nothing but respect for that. It's like good for you guys.
yeah. They're very, very dedicated.
Yes, they are.
So regarding all of that, thank you so much for your generosity, your time, and your wisdom, and can't
Yeah.
wait to hear more about all the beautiful stories and transformation came
Yeah.
out of OK Corral.
Awesome. It was great talking with you.
Likewise.
All
Let
right,
me
man.
end broadcast.